Okay.
Welcome back to SuiteScript Stories. My name is Eric Grubaugh. Today, I'm here to talk with Isabella Romanazzi, the Director of NetSuite Recruitment at Systems Accountants. Isabella, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, so am I. I brought you on the show to talk about your experience, your observations, and your advice for the NetSuite job market. So
Yeah.
folks looking for jobs, folks looking to hire for jobs. I think you have a lot of great insights and advice that maybe you can add some perspective for the audience here, which is again primarily NetSuite administrators, developers, sort of
Mhm.
more the technical side of NetSuite. So,
Perfect.
yeah, listeners,
I
if you're out there looking for a job, Isabella is the person to connect to.
Thank you. Yes, and this is something I'm genuinely passionate about, and I am really looking forward to this discussion. And
Yeah.
I'll give you some context on myself first and the role I play in the NetSuite recruitment ecosystem, so everyone has just a general idea. And then Eric, I'll turn it back to you so you can structure the conversation. But I've had the pleasure of recruiting within the NetSuite ecosystem specifically for the past 6 years with systems accountants. And systems accountants is a financial systems and finance transformation specialist recruitment firm. And I have the pleasure of leading the NetSuite recruitment division of the business. So my core focus is to place anyone from a NetSuite administrator, a financial systems manager, a NetSuite developer, architect, or all the way up through to a director of business systems, director of enterprise systems, et cetera. So my core focus is to build, long-term relationships with NetSuite professionals that sit on, all ends of the business side. And with that being said, I have really enjoyed building my network within the NetSuite ecosystem over the years through NetSuite user groups, Suite World, and I have had the pleasure as well of placing candidates repeatedly throughout their career milestones. So, there are certainly instances where I've placed a NetSuite administrator that's evolved to be a director of business systems. And, that's something that's extremely rewarding and it's an absolute privilege. And so I hope I can share insight that helps people that want to grow within the NetSuite space. And I hope I can be of a helpful resource.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt that you can. Uh,
Awesome.
can you tell us, can we like back up a little bit and tell us about
Yeah.
sort of your journey to getting to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I luckily fell into the realm of recruitment, and I actually didn't have any prior recruitment experience. And systems accountants found me. I was so lucky in that sense. So I didn't have any prior exposure to the world of financial systems, ERP, accounting software. So what was really amazing for me as I kind of built my career path here is I was able to really immerse myself specifically in the NetSuite ecosystem. So I think having a specialty has allowed me to really go deep, not wide, and learn as much as I can about how NetSuite impacts businesses. And it also has enabled me to learn from my candidate network. I've had the chance to firsthand hear about so many different implementation journeys, so many different skill sets, and so many different seats within a business systems team or a finance team. And so that has, organically, I think, enabled me to get to the point where I can be a subject matter expert in this field. So I think just honestly, years of organic networking and being strategic in the sense that I'm in a unique spot because I can help a NetSuite developer or a NetSuite administrator in one of two ways, personally or professionally. I can absolutely be a resource to an individual as they are looking to identify their next strategic career move. So, I've gotten to know so many people organically through preparing them for interviews or, walking them through the journey, walking them through the market. And then you become friends, you build friendships. And then at the same time, once you get to a certain point, these individuals I can help them in a professional way as well. So I've had many candidates turn clients. Many individuals come to me and say, you've either placed me at X company or maybe you didn't place me, but we had the chance to work together along the journey. And now I'm in a position where I need to strategically build a NetSuite team. So I think it's just, kind of grown organically, really, which I'm extremely thankful for. And it's been a lot of fun along the way, because what I love about NetSuite is that it impacts so many different businesses, anywhere from small to mid to enterprise level. So I've seen the direct impact a NetSuite professional makes on a business in so many different ways. And it's kind of really given me a strong holistic understanding of how important you all are to the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's a heavy weight sometimes.
I would think.
So, what, as you are looking to sort of place or find,
Yeah.
what am I going to say, find good employment matches for both sides of the equation here, what are some of the maybe observations or impressions you have of the NetSuite market right now?
Sure. I would say it is vital to have a NetSuite professional on, the internal side of the business. And I'll explain that in a bit more context, but I think what I would want candidates know, or folks that are pursuing positions to know, is that your role is vital in the sense that, any company that embarks on a NetSuite implementation, whether or not they know it yet, is going to need an internal NetSuite champion or someone to sit on their end of an implementation to guide them through the ERP transition. So your role is vital in the sense that you have a very specific skill set that is not in abundance to the general public. So I think what you can prepare for as it relates to thinking of some trends, or thinking about how you'd conduct yourself in an interview, is that, the interview should be very conversational. You can note that many companies are going through this for the first time. So, I see so many companies that are maybe outgrowing QuickBooks, or they're implementing an ERP system for the first time, and therefore they don't know what they don't know. They may have business processes defined, they may not. So in your light, to give you a little bit of a comfort factor, I think having just that mindset of, this company is preparing for something new, and this is my core area of expertise, allows you to be in a really unique position, because you are the advisor, you are the thought leader, you're the subject matter expert, and just sharing, your experience and relating it back to that company's business model is, really impactful in itself. So the trends I'm noticing, just to kind of reiterate your question, Eric, relate to many companies that are going through change management for the first time, an ERP transformation for the first time. Think about that from a bigger picture perspective. Think about how many companies maybe don't recognize how much of a commitment it is as well to implement NetSuite, and maybe they'll start their journey and they don't realize the time commitment it will take. They don't realize, oh, wait, the controller can't do this. They're not a NetSuite administrator or a developer. They have their own day job. So I think what a lot of companies sometimes don't realize, and what a lot of candidates don't realize sometimes, is that, implementing NetSuite creates a new division of the business, or a new position within the business. You are a business partner. You're not just here to deploy tickets. You are a strategic thought leader, and I think the way you position yourself should be thought of as one. And I think when you think of it like that, it could be a bit more of a, I don't know, comforting conversation. It's, a really interesting mutual topic, and a lot of companies are gearing up for a big change. They want to feel comfort that others have been there, done that, and can, you can learn from them. So that's something I would say is, that implementation readiness piece. It also relates to the post go live phase 2 optimization. It doesn't just, the journey doesn't end there, as many companies would love it. If you get to
Mhm.
a successful go live, amazing. Not many companies do, or they have their own journeys to get there, but it doesn't just stop there. You're then at the point where you're thinking, well, how do I get the best return on investment from a NetSuite standpoint now? Now it's to the fun part, which is, customizing reporting or adding new modules and functionalities or integrations. So I think you have such a vital role within this ecosystem that, and I would think about it in that mindset if I could give advice to those that are looking for a new position for the first time and are preparing for interviews. Think of it holistically. You are a business partner and you will directly impact the way the CFO operates, the way the controller operates, the key stakeholders, are your colleagues. So you're vital is something I would say.
And I would totally agree. And I definitely wish more businesses, more end users of NetSuite sort of thought that way or knew
Mhm.
that going into it
Oh
uh,
yeah.
and understood that. But I guess that's why we're here to help teach them.
Yes.
You, when we say sort of think of yourself as a thought leader and understanding that your role is vital, if I'm
Mhm.
looking for a job, how can I sort of signal those things, manifest those things in my application, my resume, whatever sort of communications I have with you, with
Mhm.
my potential employer? How can I signal some of those things? What should I be
Yeah.
actively doing?
I think in terms of starting with your resume, I would fuel your resume with as much ammunition as possible in the sense of give tangible, direct experiences with detail of, your impact throughout your tenure. So with each position you demonstrate on your resume, you should indicate whether or not you were part of that initial full cycle implementation. There's not a negative about it. If you weren't part of the implementation, no problem. But if you were, state that. I would directly state the key stakeholders you were responsible for collaborating with. I would state whether or not you were responsible for requirements gathering, solution architecture, or if not, what modules did you configure? What changes did you deploy? I would state as many tangible examples of the business processes you were exposed to, the industry you worked in, because that's going to dictate, what functionality of the system you were responsible for improving. I would also like to see, how many end users you supported or the scale of your business. That tells its own story. Were you part of a startup that grew rapidly and so headcount changed or the volume of transactions changed and that needed to, that directly impacted NetSuite? I want to hear the story behind your role. I think where some NetSuite developers or administrators fall in the habit of is, it's hard for them to get that all on paper. It's hard for them to depict it because to them, it's just another day in the life. So you don't necessarily realize, well, hang on a second, that was an insane journey. You were just vital in, contributing to. You're not just doing saved searches and dashboards and reporting. You are like, you have to think of that a way to capture that holistically. So on your resume, I would just say as detailed as possible, give us the quantitative as much as you're giving the qualitative, spell it out for us. And if you are partnering with a NetSuite specialist recruiter or, a recruiter with your employer, share, they're here to help you. That, they should take your story and help fuel that conversation and help really depict who you are, why you're rare, why you're directly relevant for the position at hand, because that's what we're here to do. We are in your corner and we're advocates. And from a talent acquisition standpoint, it is our role to make sure you are most accurately and efficiently represented as possible because we only win if you win. So we're here to guide you and coach you through those things. But in terms of starting with your resume, think about the position you're applying for, think about their business model, their industry, their journey to NetSuite. Are they just preparing for an implementation? Or have they been running the system for 5 years or 10 years? And what can you assume about the way they might be running NetSuite based on just what business they are? Are they a utilities business? Are they a manufacturer? Are they a software as a service company? Those are the things I want you thinking about as you're furnishing your resume. And I can always help with that as well. But
Mhm.
that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's something we talk about a lot on the show is that you're not, it's easy when you have a job, sitting there at your desk day to day, it's
Yeah.
easy to sort of get lost, not lost necessarily, but get that tunnel
Yeah,
vision of the tunnel vision of here's the fields I'm creating, here's the code I'm writing.
exactly.
And it's easy to forget about or ignore or never learn about the sort of greater business impact that you're having.
Yes.
For you, it might have
Exactly.
been a very simple two-stage workflow, but for the company, it might have saved
Yes.
hundreds of thousands of dollars in
Exactly.
costs or something like that. And so having that understanding, even while you're employed, is
Yeah.
crucial. It's really important to sort of growing your career. And then I think you should be updating your resume gets way easier if you keep track of that stuff as it sort of
Yeah,
happens.
you
Which
nailed
I think,
it.
yeah, I think you should be doing anyway. For if you're trying to make a case for promotion, it gets easier. If you're even if you're not
Yeah.
sort of looking for a new job, if you're just trying to progress to the next stage, keeping
Hmm.
track of that stuff, reflecting on that stuff, excuse me, is
Exactly.
very important.
Yes, that's a good point. And I actually had that epiphany a few weeks back, because I work with individuals that are looking to be placed in permanent full-time, direct hire roles, as well as I do place career consultants and contractors as well. And there was a point in which I was sitting down with one of my long-term NetSuite administrators or solution architects, and I said, "Oh my gosh, his name's Connor. Connor, we haven't updated your resume in 4 years because I've just been placing you repeatedly, and which is a blessing and it's a great thing, but you need to sit down. I need to give you homework like I'm your teacher, and we have to literally go back and list every single corporate account you worked on, and you did so much change management. You were part of so many complex ERP initiatives and implementations that we have to depict this before too much time passes and I let another 4 years go. And yeah, I don't have you update your resume." So that was a good realization of, yeah, the power of doing it as you go, because it is very easy to miss details or not realize the impact you're making because you're just heads down going a mile a minute. So doing it one by one is a great thing. And now Connor and I have an updated resume for him, and I feel like it's so much, as much as I can articulate, it's great to just have it on paper. It needs to be spelled out because the impact it's just a great thing to have for your own personal and professional reference. And the other thing I'd say to people as well is, if you need to, make a NetSuite addendum that supplements your resume. If you feel like you're constrained to the format of a resume, just get a separate, it could be a Word doc. It doesn't even have to be that complex, but
Mhm.
just in bullet format, here's the project, here's the scope, here's why NetSuite was needed, and here was the problem, and here's how we solved it, and just kind of spill your guts, I would say, if you can. And then you have that to supplement your resume to give just additional context. So that's another option too.
Yeah, and then when you go to an eventual interview, you've got
Yeah,
that story sort of fresh in your mind. Even if you don't hand that piece of paper over, you have that story or
have
those
it for yourself.
stories ready to go, sort of fresh in your mind. So
Mhm.
really important exercise. I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
What if we flip the coin over and look from the employer side? What
Hmm.
should employers be doing, expecting,
Yeah.
looking for, that sort of thing? Any advice or observations you have for employers in the NetSuite space?
Sure. So I would say some of the same concepts apply, but if you are an employer looking to hire a NetSuite professional, if you can, really sit down with as many of your internal business leaders that are affected by NetSuite as possible. Meet with finance, meet with your CFO, meet with your controller. If you've got physical inventory, meet with your director of operations or director of supply chain, and really understand what they're anticipating in terms of NetSuite process improvement and where their struggles are. So you have a holistic view of finance, operations, and how could I forget technology? So that's also going to help you determine, who is this role reporting into? Is the NetSuite developer reporting into the CIO, the director of technology, or does it need to sit in finance for whatever reason? NetSuite administrators typically sit in finance or technology, but on the development side, typically technology. Every business is different. So understand that requirements gather across those three key departments if you've got them. And then from there, you still do need to nail down your maybe top 3 non-negotiable skills, or, and whether that looks like we need, this NetSuite individual to have manufacturing experience or experience in a construction setting. Great. That's key requirement number 1. That encaptures a lot of, some of the other processes that this person will be, that will be related to this person's role. Narrow down modules, and then I would narrow down, if you can, come to the market with an idea of your salary requirements or location requirements, or if there's certain elements of on-site presence needed. Not always needed in the NetSuite space. Obviously, we're a cloud, based environment, but there are certain times where maybe you do, as a business, require someone on site for a project milestone or for end user adoption. Find out those key areas that are most important to you. If you're also, the other thing I would say to hiring managers, some companies don't even have business processes in place. And then they're also, embarking on a NetSuite journey. Figure that out as well. Do you need this person to be really devoted to documentation and business process analysis and improvement? Or do you already have that nailed and you need to deploy optimization tasks and workflows and, et cetera, et cetera. So I tell the hiring managers as well, think of this holistically. NetSuite is going to change your business. It's going to change how people, in finance, accounting, and technology do their, typical day job as well. So think about that. Think about those things.
Yeah. And I think I want to re-highlight your sort of NetSuite champion advice. Like, I think that's just critical. Whether you're going to hire, whether the person you are hiring is going to be the NetSuite champion, if not, discovering, appointing, or having someone volunteer to fill that role is so important. Even if you're not going through an implementation, you might argue you need it more after your implementation.
Exactly.
Someone who understands the ecosystem and the business at the same time, and can sort of translate the process needs into NetSuite requirements, and likes doing it, like is bought into NetSuite, right? The champion word is important there. So I think that's another critical thing to be thinking about.
And you know what? The role of a NetSuite champion, let's call it, has evolved so much over the years. It's much more dynamic, and it is okay. And it is a fact that there are certain NetSuite, administrators that are more system analysis, requirements gathering, business process focused and orientated, whereas there are a population, of folks that deploy the tasks and look for that leadership and direction. So identify what type of NetSuite administrator or developer you need. And I'd also argue that the role of a NetSuite developer on the technical side, it's not like it used to be. It's not just scripting in isolation in a corner. Like most of the time, the NetSuite technical leads or architects or developers are right there with you in business process. So just think about, how much help you need to get from point A to point B. But definitely. And again, not to be biased, but leverage a NetSuite recruiter, or speak to another comparable business that implemented NetSuite or that is running NetSuite in a similar size and structure, and ask them what they learned about their hiring process, or ask them what their key requirements were, because you may not need 10 non-negotiable skills, because then you're going to pigeonhole yourself, so there are things that there's a lot of resources out there that can help you determine what you need and when. And the other element I would say is it's never too late. In an ideal world, hire a NetSuite internal resource as soon as possible, but there are plenty of companies that have success doing it post go live, and they're live for a year plus, and now they're at that point where, okay, the system's stable, it's doing great, but we're doing things manually still because we don't know any better. So at any phase in your life cycle, it's never too late to hire a NetSuite administrator. But it is, you can sometimes save yourself some headaches by doing it sooner rather than later, because you can learn from that individual's experience and help prevent things that you otherwise wouldn't have been the wiser if you just started yourself. I could talk about that for hours. So I won't, but yeah, that's the way I would think about it as well.
Great. Anything else you want to add about sort of whether it's job market impressions, advice for seekers, for employers, anything I failed to ask about?
No, I don't think so. I think that this is a really good conversation starter, and it kind of puts my mind in a few different directions, because there's so much more we can, I think, continue to build upon. But the other element I would say, or the advice I'd give to job seekers and hiring managers as well, is that, you've got a lot of options. If you are a career seeker or a job seeker, you have the option of exploring some other avenues in your career path. So for example, if your main initiative is to identify a strategic permanent position, you also have the option of considering part-time contract engagements in the interim while you find that right fit, so you don't have to rush to make a decision. There are plenty of opportunities you have to bridge the gap throughout your journey if you need to take more time to yourself to nail down those key requirements you have for your own application process. There's that as an option. And then as well, to companies that maybe are in the implementation phase that know they'll need to hire a NetSuite professional in some way, shape, or form, but they don't know exactly what that looks like yet, you can also leverage a project-based NetSuite professional, whether it's an implementation consultant, an architect, or an admin, to get you through the implementation phase. And then you'll have a more of a mature understanding in terms of where your internal skill set gaps are. So that's another option you have as well. There's a few different paths you can take to get to the right path. But I think that would be what I would say as well. The other piece of advice I'd give is if you have access to a local NetSuite user group within your city or your hometown, definitely go and attend. That is an
Yes.
amazing thing to do. Yeah, in your networking journey. You don't have to just network with a recruiter. I don't want to sound biased, but network with your peers, network with locals in your own city. And just, the more you can do that and learn about other people's journeys in this space, the better, because I will say this, Eric, I've never met such truly respectful, outstanding, intelligent, and down-to-earth professionals. The NetSuite space is a really welcoming space, and everybody is really eager to help each other. And I've never had instances where I want to introduce Eric to someone that I think he'd get along with, or
Mhm.
oh, hey, Susie, you should speak to Sally because she went through something so similar, or you two would be great friends. It's, such a welcoming environment that don't be afraid to make new friends along the way. As
I
cheesy as it
could
sounds.
not agree more. Could
Yeah.
not agree more. Finding that
Yeah.
network, that support community, is vital to advancing your career, I think, and not we don't even think about it as advancing, but just as sort of improving your quality of life. So you're
Oh
not
yeah.
alone, you're not isolated. It can very often NetSuite people are alone. They're the only NetSuite person in the
Yes.
company, right? There's a bunch of
Exactly.
users, but there's one admin, or there's one developer, or there's one sort of hybrid role in there, and it can be lonely. It can be isolating. So
Yeah.
finding that community and support is invaluable.
I cannot agree more. I wholeheartedly echo that. And maybe the other thing I would say is, you are even in a tough market, because the market right now can be tricky. I'm mindful that there are people out there that, are eager for their next position and are ready. You know what? Trust the process, I know it sounds, again, arbitrary, but everything happens for a reason. Keep in mind that you are in a really, I think, lucrative industry in the sense that at the end of the day, the amount of companies running NetSuite outweighs the amount of individuals on the playing field with the skill set to manage the application. So you are, again, you're vital. You have a lot of value to add. There are plenty of companies out there that would welcome you with open arms, and it is a great avenue in the sense that you have a lot of value to add. And it's a bit different than an accounting role where it's like, have you done X, Y, or Z? No. Okay, pass. It's much more, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but you have such a solid connection. When you have NetSuite experience, you are an outlier. So there's great opportunity for you and you're in the right career path. So that's what I'd keep in mind too.
It's a growing space, but it's still a very small space.
Hmm.
There still aren't a lot of NetSuite professionals, relative to
Yeah.
the larger ERPs, CRMs, or even,
Hmm.
just pick any niche, any vertical
Yeah.
out there. This is still a very, very small one. So you are looking for a job. If you have NetSuite experience, you are rare. You're already rare.
Yes. Exactly. So those are the things I'd keep in mind as you go through some of these big, initiatives, but we're always here to help. And I would love to be able to answer anybody's questions individually. Should anybody have further ideas, questions, or need connections, that's what I'm here for. So
We'll definitely
absolutely.
get sort of your where people can find out more about you and links and all that good stuff at the end. But you brought up sort of it can be a tricky market. So we talked about sort of
Yeah.
advice. What about expectations? If you
Hmm.
are looking for a job, should you be expecting a whole bunch of choices and interviews, or what are the expectations like? What's the average time frame, things like that? What expectations should I
Yeah.
have as a job seeker? And then we'll flip it around to the employers as well.
Yeah, and this is going to be you're asking this question at a time that's kind of tricky. So I'll give you the answers in a normal market and in the current state of the market we're at right now. And
Okay.
I will preface this by saying the macroeconomics, that's beyond my pay grade, but here's kind of the things to
Mine
know
too.
about some of the trends in the space right now. But ultimately, at the end of the day, under normal circumstances, like we said, the amount of NetSuite professionals on the market is far slim compared to the demand. So I think, under normal circumstances, NetSuite administrators are always, at capacity in high demand. It's unlikely to see NetSuite administrators on the market for extended lengths of time because it is a fast-driven candidate market. I've seen that be the case fairly consistently over my 6 years in this ecosystem. What we're experiencing right now is a bit more of an employer's market in the sense that, and this is not just the NetSuite space. This is, I think, nationally across all industries. You'll find that there are a bit less vacancies in abundance. So right now, what that's doing is it's extending the timelines to hire. So what would typically be a 4 to 6 week interview process under normal circumstances for a direct hire permanent candidate is extended a little bit closer to the 6 to 8 week mark, because I think more companies are probably just conservative with making decisions and spend, and it depends on what verticals you're in. So that's something to keep in mind, but under normal circumstances, it is a swift process. It's a candidate driven market. I think employers need to be prepared to move very quickly because they will miss out on the ideal skill set. But I would also kind of caveat that by saying you will have options. I think you don't have to, you know, put yourself in a position where you're finding a short-term fit. I'd rather you take the time to make the strategic long-term jump rather than feel torn by the clock. So, I think right now you can expect maybe a bit less options, but the options you do have will probably be very tailored to you, and you should, really go deep again, not wide. But under other circumstances, timelines and the pace might be a little different. So I think right now things are moving at a little bit of a slower pace because, again, the economy is a little bit uncertain at the moment, but, that won't last. The truth of the matter is there's probably a pent up backlog of work that's been honestly put on pause over the last 12 months. That's going to
Sure.
boomerang, and when it rains, it pours. So keep that in mind. If you're on the market and it's taking longer than you would have ever expected, it's not due to your, I think, experience. It's just due to some of the other external factors that are out of your control. But that's what, again, recruiters are here to help you with. So you can get some of that context that you otherwise wouldn't feel or know on your own.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that answered the question. But
Definitely.
that I can always talk to people about that on an individual level too, and then further explain what to expect, how many options to anticipate. But I always like to give people the more interviews we embark on together, the better, because you'll then learn more about exactly what you prefer, what you want, what excites you. And then through some interviews, you might say, oh, actually, no, this is not right for me, and here's why. And then we shift gears. So in my opinion, I'd rather furnish you with as many possible interview opportunities as I can, so that way you have the power to select. But
Yeah,
I can further discuss the true volume behind that probably in a different conversation. So
for sure. And
yeah.
what about on the sort of employer side? Should I be expecting to have to choose from 20 people or to have to choose from two people? Am I gonna, what
Yeah.
does it look like on that side?
No, I would say it's a very vetted shortlist, and it's a smaller and more concise shortlist for hiring managers because, again, these individuals are not in abundance. You can't just, go into your own backyard on the local level and have a coffee with that local NetSuite guy. I wish you could, but it's definitely much more of a vetted shortlist, especially because depending on your criteria, there are not going to be an abundance of people at your disposal that are available or have the exact module experience or workflow experience or industry experience, et cetera. So I think my approach and my best advice, if you are a hiring manager, would be, again, have strong control over your key requirements. Start there. Speak to 2 to 4 or 3 to 5 candidates and build the foundation of what your yes candidate looks like, and then go from there. But don't expect, a short list of 20 plus people at your disposal repeatedly. It's definitely much more of a vetted short list and a smaller, more condensed one. Yeah.
Right. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Are there any sort of activities, projects outside of like recruitment necessarily that you're involved in, interested in, passionate about, or wanted to share today?
Yeah, I would say, well, this I guess does relate to the realm of recruitment and my profession,
Okay.
but outside of the day to day, I'm definitely passionate about putting networking events together for this market. So, I have in the past hosted a series of events called Women in NetSuite, or Women in Financial Systems. Eric, I think I mentioned this to you before. We've hosted a couple events in Chicago where I'm based. We've done so in New York as well, and I hope to be able to make that more of a consistent annual event. And if not, I really encourage people to attend the NetSuite directly hosted Women Who Mean Business event. I'm not sure if anybody's seen those events in their cities, but that's a great chapter of events that will just connect any, anyone in business that might be a NetSuite user to come together for a night of networking. And then otherwise, the NetSuite user group is something I definitely try to pride myself in being active around. So over the years, I can't thank the Boston NetSuite user group enough. They happen to be just, a community of folks that I've found myself, returning to many times a year, quarterly. At one point, I was attending and sponsoring the Boston NetSuite user group and helping to drive attendance. And we have such a strong population of candidates and clients in that territory that I feel like we've really built that to a consistent user group. So my goal is to replicate that in a few other cities. Something that I have my eye on is the Southeast NetSuite user group, because one of my long-term candidates is on the board of the Southeast user group. So that's going to rotate between Atlanta, Charlotte, and I believe Nashville. So trying to get that, built, and I want to contribute to that in as many ways as I can. And then my biggest goal right now is reviving the Chicago NetSuite user group in my own backyard. That's something that I try to keep an eye on. But there are definitely user groups available to the West Coast as well. But I can certainly be a resource to getting some just other networking events in your diary. But that's something I would say would be on my focus as a project.
Right. Well, is there anything else you want to highlight or discuss today?
Eric, I think that covers everything. Like I said, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be featured on your podcast. I'm a fan. I think our, network of, peers and the direct target contacts we work with on the daily are completely comparable. So I think that this was a really smart conversation to start. And I look forward to continuing to share ideas with you in the future. But thank you very much for having me. And I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, right before we wrap up, we'll have links to all of the groups and events that you mentioned down in the show notes. And then where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can email me at isabella@systemsaccountants.com or find me on LinkedIn. My name is Isabella Romanazzi.
All right. Well, again, we'll have links to your LinkedIn profile, your email in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much. I think that will bring this episode of SuiteScript Stories to a close.
Thank you.
And I hope you join me next time as we continue to highlight interesting stories and people from around the SuiteScript world.
Thank you. Take care.
You.
Awesome. All right.